Thanks for having me here today. I'm really looking forward to sharing a little bit about what I have learned over the years. So I've been doing this gluten-free thing for about 13 years now, since the elusive source of the symptoms that I had experienced for many years was officially given a name and a treatment plan. Like many of you know, it's not really a treatment plan. It's more of a gluten avoidance plan. I experienced a long learning curve, like most of you. First, I examined everything I ate and my cooking environment. Then, after I had eliminated everything from those two sources, I was fully confident in my diet being gluten-free. That's when I more consciously and methodically started examining everything else that comes in contact with my skin, my eyes, and my lips. I want to share with you a recent example of something that caught me off guard, even after many, many years of eating gluten-free. Last year I attended a conference in Toronto, Canada. My first aha was when I landed in Toronto. I was reminded that you can't bring fruit and vegetable across an international border. The Border Patrol confiscated my fruits and vegetables. My conference registration had included my gluten-free requirements, and I emailed the organizers a few weeks before the event and confirmed that there would be on-site options for gluten-free lunch. Fast forward to the first conference lunch. The venue was set up with 3 or 4 kiosk-style offerings where they had a lot of prepared food that was brought in from off-site. So I walked around looking at options, asking questions to gauge the level of control over cross-contamination, and found myself staring at the only option at the conference: sushi. Well, although it was gluten-free, this was not going to be an option for me today or tomorrow or really any other day. It's true, I'm not going to starve by missing a single meal. But knowing that delaying my eating would eventually deplete me of my energy and my attention, I was relieved to know that I had a few options in my bag. Were they gourmet? No. Were they delicious? No, not really. But they were protein-packed calories that would bridge me until my evening meal. Today I'm going to walk you through my journey to learn what accommodations I needed to make sure that I could enjoy business and leisure travel. I plan to leave you with a few tips that will reduce some of your anxiety involving when you have to surrender control of your food prep. So why is it so difficult? When you eat gluten-free, you realize how important it is to understand not only the ingredients, but really the entire process of your meal from the refrigerator to the table. To the typical person, worrying about what, where, with what, and what touched might seem insane. You know what I mean, right? The concern for what was on that spot on the grill before your food was put there? What's the condition of the plastic bowl or the wooden spoons or the spatula that they're using? Who else thinks about what touched the tongs or the cutting board? I've worked to consider eating out a huge leap of faith each and every time. So I'm going to highlight my lessons learned for 6 common scenarios in hopes that there's a nugget or two of information in there that will be helpful for you. First of all, let's start with packing for lunch, where there won't be any refrigeration. This is by far the toughest scenario that any celiac will come across. This is what I affectionately refer to as my go-to bag, because all the items stand alone, except for a couple of items which require hot water. Now before you get your hopes up, I want to warn you, this is not a gourmet lunch option. It won't make you the envy of your gluten-eating friends, but it will provide you the nutrition you need to keep up with your day. The contents of my go bag looks a little bit like this. Most importantly is your protein sources. Today's example, I have some Canadian bacon slices, some string cheese, some crackers. I've got carrots and cucumber, crackers with sunflower butter, several tangerines, and to top it off, a few cookies for the end. Now, if you throw in a water bottle, you actually have a pretty good lunch. So I've also been known to carry some tea, some oatmeal, protein bars, little snacks, and the gluten-free equivalent of a Easy Mac. So what I would typically do is eat what I needed to out of the course of the day, and then when I go back to my hotel room, I replenish based on what I brought with me for the following day. My next tips are for when you're eating out in restaurants. I find the most success if I've researched all my available options before we're hungry and on the way out the door. I will typically research within a 5 to 10 mile radius, knowing that not everywhere is real conducive to eating gluten-free. I'll read reviews, sometimes I even call to make sure that they can accommodate my unique needs. I found the most success with restaurants who have a gluten-free menu. And even better yet are those that identify that they have a dedicated cooking space. In my experience, if they have a separate menu, they have taken the time and the effort to understand the modifications that are required on their regular menu. And they typically have a good sense of their supply chain. I found that many of the restaurants who can make these accommodations are chain restaurants. When we follow a gluten-free diet, we definitely lose the flexibility and spontaneity of being able to stop in anywhere and eat. I've also had good experience with the higher price point restaurants because they often have a chef on hand and they're cooking from scratch. One other thing that I've learned is don't hesitate to ask for a manager or the kitchen manager. This is especially important if you're not connecting with your server and you're not sure that they understand your needs. I've had several managers either cook my meal themselves or to assign a single cook to cook the meal from beginning to end, eliminating most options for cross-contamination. And if all else fails and you don't feel confident that your needs are understood or that they can be accommodated, don't hesitate to hold off and eat an alternate meal or eat later. It's not always fun, but I typically try to engage the server in a little light humor by telling him, start with everybody else and then come back to me because I'm your problem child for sure. I encourage you to ask a lot of questions. Ask about the ingredients. Ask about handling procedures. Ask about cross-contamination risks. It's better to be aware than to be sick. It's important to ask if fried items share the same oil as breaded products. I even go as far as to say, so it's a separate fryer, right? Not just a separate basket that goes into the shared oil. You might be surprised how many times they change their answer about whether or not their fries are gluten-free. One thing I learned the hard way is don't assume that scrambled eggs, egg bakes, or omelets are made with just eggs. Many restaurants add flour blends to increase the height and texture. If you want to make sure you're only getting eggs, it's a good idea to order them fried. It's important to be aware that steaks at the higher end restaurants can also be rested in flour prior to being grilled. It's worth asking, as nothing is worse than paying a lot of money and making yourself sick. Another thing that I've learned is when I'm ordering a salad, it's a good idea to ask for the dressing on the side. The reason that I do this is that I've found that sometimes restaurants will mix up the salad in the same bowl without sending it through the dishwasher. So there's a potential that the croutons and the dressing from whoever's salad was made previous to yours will end up in your salad, causing a cross-contamination issue. Another thing I've learned is if you're offered bread or toast as a part of your meal, I would confirm that they actually toast that away from cross-contamination sources. Some restaurants will broil your toast, but others may not realize that it can't go in the regular toaster. In addition, I always ask politely to make sure that the waitress will mention to the kitchen that I'm extremely sensitive to any gluten or cross-contamination, and ask if they wouldn't mind cleaning a small space on the grill of all the other food residue to make sure that I can enjoy a good meal. And then I always close with a note of appreciation, and I found that that really goes a long way. So if none of the nuances of eating out when you're traveling sounds like fun, consider cooking for yourself in somebody else's kitchen. Of course, you can't do this everywhere, but there are certain types of vacations that lend well to this. For example, vacation rental by owner, where you rent someone's home or cabin, timeshare units, hotel suites with full or partial kitchens, all provide this flexibility. Even glamping, which is what we call glamorous camping, in either an RV or a houseboat, can allow you to cook for yourself. It's important to remember when you get there, the kitchen is probably not gluten-free. So when I arrive, I like to pull out my Clorox wipes and do a little wipe down. If you're staying in a hotel, you might be surprised what you can do with just a few items. Typically, I will take along a ceramic bowl and a Tupperware bowl, including the lid. With just these two items, plus some utensils, I'm able to make quite a few different options. In this, I can prepare eggs, cereal, or oatmeal for breakfast. And with this, I'm able to make a nice salad mixed up with some dressing and some lunch meat to add in some protein. If you're staying for an extended period and you'll have a full lunch, consider bringing along a few items such as tinfoil, maybe even a fry pan. Bring your own spatula. A large cutting board, and a large bowl are two other items that I'd recommend. All of these items have a potential for cross-contamination issues if you're using what's found in the unit. With the tinfoil, you're able to cover the grill or to create a packet to cook meats and veggies. When I'm at home, I like to use glass containers, but when I travel, I make sure to have a collection of baggies along to make sure that I can store my food safely. And when I go picnicking with my gluten-loving family, I make sure to tuck all of their gluten-containing items inside a gallon Ziploc bag to make sure that there is no cross-contamination. Our first several trips, while I was very anxious about finding enough to eat and about not getting sick, we vacationed in an RV. I actually pre-made a number of meals. I took several meals that were ready to eat and others that were completely frozen. This eliminated all pressure from finding any restaurants. Although it's a lot of work to get ready, the peace of mind was worth it. When you find yourself shopping away from home, it's very important that you do your research. It can reduce your stress by researching gluten-free grocery and bakery. And I would recommend that you actually research the entire trip, not just your primary locations. Depending on when you're traveling, you may be headed into a hot spot of great dining, like I found in Memphis, Tennessee, or you could be heading into a gluten-free desert, like we found in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. If you know you'll pass through a location that's more challenging, you can do a little pre-planning and buy extra items before you arrive, and make sure that you have enough to last for a few days. In addition, you don't forget the power of the trip to the grocery store. With a little creativity, you can put together a decent meal by doing a little perimeter shopping, focusing on your whole fruits and vegetables, your meats, and your cheeses. If you're staying an extended time in one location, consider the options for having gluten-free items delivered to you. When we went to Alaska, I actually packed up a small box of items and I had it shipped ahead to our location. Much to my surprise, Anchorage was rich with dining and grocery options, but I didn't know for sure. Another option is to purchase specialty items through either an online gluten-free retailer or Amazon Prime and have them delivered to you. So everybody knows how difficult catered events can be. I would be exaggerating if I said I had mastered the frustration of this one. This is a time when everything is stacked against you. You have probably not had any choice in the caterer or advance input on the menu. Worse yet, you're not paying the bill, so you don't have a lot of leverage. So this is one that could be uncomfortable, if you let it. You have two options really, eat in advance or bring your own food. It's awkward to sit and watch everyone else eat. I would suggest that you pull out your picnic and eat with the rest of the guests. It takes some pre-planning to pack a great salad, a little bit of fruit, something sweet for the dessert, But more times than not, I've had people who were enjoying the catered meal comment how they would much prefer my salad. Last but not least, it's important to plan for meals while you're actually in transit, especially if you're traveling a far distance or over the course of many hours. Air travel can be particularly tough. Nothing is worse than being stuck on a plane or in an airport without any food options. Some of your easy options for air travel are similar to what I've referred to earlier as my go-to bag. These are the options that don't require any refrigeration. I've also noticed that the kiosks in the airports are starting to do a better job of offering gluten-free items such as yogurt and protein bars. Another tip is to research the airport location where you have a layover. Some may actually have gluten-free options, but you need to be aware that there's no guarantee that you'll be on the same concourse or that there'll be enough time for you to track down something to eat. I always try to eat a salad before I take off, and then your best bet is to pack something to take with you. Remind yourself, today it's not about great food, it's about fueling yourself with the energy you need to make it to your destination. Last but not least is traveling in your personal vehicle. I've been caught making the assumption that there will be gluten-free options in all areas. When we traveled across the Dakotas and into Montana, there was a significant dry streak on our way out to Glacier National Park. We drove for hours, literally hours, without seeing any stores and restaurants, not to mention one that could accommodate a gluten-free meal. I like the freedom of driving trips as you can always pack a cooler with food. If you find a great gluten-free option along the way, you just keep adding ice to your cooler until you need to eat what you brought along. In closing, food is everywhere. It's part of our workday, it's part of how we celebrate, it's intertwined with how we gather with family and friends. So it comes down to it. You have three choices. A choice in whether you decide to be active and settle for a so-so meal every once in a while, and a choice to take chances with what you eat and the chance of getting sick. Or, third, you can opt out. I'd like to share a little bit of a little video clip of some images of the experiences that I've had in the last 5 years, where I opted in with my food in hand. I've taken this approach because I won't let my gluten-free diet limit me. What will you choose?